Welcome back, everyone, to The Power of Choice. I'm Brice Woodard, and as always, I am joined by the insightful, the ever balanced, or maybe not so balanced, Jeff Yard. How you doing, Jeff?
Yeah, let's go with working on it. I'm doing well, Bryce. Excited for today's topic because it's something I think about constantly. We're diving into chapter 3 of the book, which is titled The Power of Choice.
And what an introduction it is. Work life balance is one of those phrases that gets thrown around so much, it almost loses its meaning. It's like corporate jargon. You see it in job descriptions, you hear it in HR meetings, but what does it actually feel like?
Right. It's this mythical creature that everyone's chasing. The book defines it as, the state of equilibrium where a person equally prioritizes the demands of their career and the demands of their personal life. But equally prioritizes, man, that's tough.
It is because it's not a 50-50 split every single day. Some days are 80-20 work, and you hope to have a 20-80 personal day later on to make up for it, but it rarely works out that cleanly, does it?
Never. I mean, I can think of a time, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I was at a startup. Classic story. We were in hustle mode 24/7. And I remember my wife and I were supposed to go away for our anniversary weekend.
Oh boy, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. The emergency was that the client's logo was apparently the wrong shade of blue on a PowerPoint deck for a presentation happening in 3 weeks. It was pure manufactured urgency. But my boss said, I need all hands on deck. I remember my wife just looking at me with this resignation. She didn't even fight it. She just sighed and said, okay, well, I'm going to go find that little bookstore we saw. And I spent that entire weekend stewing in this mix of resentment at the job and this profound guilt for ruining our trip. I was physically there, but mentally, I was just a wreck. That's a total breakdown.
That's the perfect example of what the book talks about with well-being and relationships. Your well-being was shot, you were stressed, and the relationship, I mean, that puts a massive strain on things. It's a classic burnout story. For me, it was more of a slow burn. It wasn't one weekend, it was hundreds of evenings that I'll just check one more email habit.
Mm-hmm. The phone is always there.
Always. And it's insidious. You tell yourself it's just 5 minutes, but then that email requires you to check a document, and that document reminds you of another task. And before you know it, an hour has passed. I had a moment a few years ago. My son was maybe 6 or 7, and he had built this ridiculously elaborate Lego spaceship. He was so proud of it, and he kept saying, Dad, come see, come see. And I kept saying, in a minute, buddy, I just have to finish this one thing. By the time I finally looked up, he'd gone to bed. The next morning, his younger sister had accidentally knocked the spaceship off the table, and it was just a pile of bricks. I never got to see it, and that just gutted me. I traded a core memory with my son for an email that I honestly can't even remember. It was a real wake-up call.
And those moments, they're not just emotional. The book touches on the physical and mental toll this lack of balance takes. And it's stark. We're talking about chronic stress, sleep disruption, anxiety. It's a serious health issue.
Totally. And it's not like this is a new problem. I found the historical perspective in the chapter fascinating. They start with ancient Greece and this concept of scholé.
Right, which originally meant leisure. Not leisure like binge watching a show to numb your brain after a hard week. Exactly. Scholé wasn't about escaping work, it was about engaging with the world on a deeper level. It was active, debating in the agora, studying geometry, composing music. It was about personal growth and civic contribution. It was a vital part of being a citizen.
And our modern concept of leisure is almost a polar opposite. It's fundamentally passive. It's about recovering from work, not growth outside of it. We scroll social media, binge watch shows, order food in. It's a recharge, sure, but it's a low quality recharge, designed only to get us ready for the next day of work. That really hit me. What was the last time my leisure was truly for growth? It's a challenging question. And then you contrast that with the ancient Chinese perspective, the whole yin and yang thing. It's not about separating work and life into two neat boxes.
Yeah, it's about harmony. It's about finding flow and integration, which feels more aligned with, say, an artist or a craftsman, where their work is their life in a beautiful, integrated way. But for many of us in corporate jobs, trying to integrate a spreadsheet into your soul is not going to happen.
No, absolutely not. Which is probably why the Western world leans so hard into compartmentalization, especially after the Industrial Revolution. That's when the clock became king.
The 8 hour day, 8 for work, 8 for rest, 8 for what you will. It was a hard won victory for labor movements. And it's wild to think that now, in our supposedly more advanced society, the 8 hour workday feels like a quaint suggestion for many professions.
It really does. That whole 888 model was built for an economy where work was physical and location dependent. You're on the factory floor or you're not. The whistle blows and your labor is done. But now the factory is in our heads.
Exactly. We're knowledge workers. Our primary tool is our brain, and our brain doesn't clock out. The work isn't just about performing a task anymore. It's about solving problems, and problems don't care if it's 5 p.m. They'll follow you home, into your shower, and pop into your head at 3 a.m. The boundaries created for physical labor are meaningless for cognitive labor, which leads right into the modern challenges the chapter gives. You have Scandinavia with concepts like lagom in Sweden, which means just the right amount, not too little, not too much. It's a cultural mindset of moderation and contentment.
The opposite of the American more is more ethos.
Completely. And then you have the dark side, Japan, and the word karoshi.
Which is just chilling. Death from overwork. The fact that this is a recognized, quantifiable phenomenon is a terrifying indictment of modern work culture. It's the absolute most tragic failure of work-life balance imaginable.
It is. And while it's an extreme, it's the end of a spectrum that I think a lot of us are sliding on. We're not at karoshi, but we're definitely experiencing the things that lead to it. Which brings us to the modern challenges section. Number one, with a bullet, is technology.
The digital leash, as they call it. We talked about my email habit, but it's more than that. It's Slack, it's Teams, it's the expectation of immediate availability. I remember getting a Slack message from my boss at 9:30 at night with a question. It wasn't urgent. It could have been an email, but because it was Slack, it felt demanding. It demanded an immediate response.
Right. The medium dictates the urgency, and it ruins whatever you were doing. You could be reading a book or watching a movie with your partner, and that little buzz, it just hijacks your brain. You're pulled out of your personal life and thrown right back into work mode.
And then there's globalization, working with teams in different time zones. Your 9 to 5 is someone else's evening. So you have a call at 7 a.m. to catch the team in Europe, and another one at 6 p.m. to catch the team in California. Your workday suddenly stretches to 12 hours, just bookended by meeting.
Yeah, the workday has no edges anymore. It's just this amorphous blob, and that directly fuels burnout, which the chapter describes not just as feeling tired, but as emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and a reduced sense of personal accomplishment.
That cynicism part is so real. It's when you start rolling your eyes at new projects. You feel detached, like, here we go again, another meaningless task. You lose the spark, the engagement that makes work fulfilling. You're just going through the motions to get a paycheck.
And that's often amplified by the last challenge, social media. You're feeling burned out, cynical, and then you scroll through Instagram or LinkedIn, and all you see is rise and grind and people celebrating their 16-hour workdays, this hustle culture porn.
Ugh, it's the worst. It creates this immense pressure, this feeling that if you're not constantly working, you're falling behind. If you take a vacation, you're lazy. If you log off at 5, you're not a team player. It's a toxic narrative that glorifies exhaustion as a badge of honor.
It's a whole subgenre of content now. I think the book calls it performative workaholism. It's not about the work itself, it's about broadcasting the fact that you're working. It's the LinkedIn post at 9 p.m. on a Saturday with a picture of a laptop and a coffee cup, caption "No days off when you're building an empire."
And it's so insidious because it frames this behavior as a virtue. It suggests that your value as a professional is directly proportional to how much you sacrifice your personal life. It creates this silent competition where people feel pressured to be constantly available, to answer emails late at night, not because the work is urgent, but to prove their commitment.
It really is. Okay, so we've painted a pretty bleak picture. We've established the problem from multiple angles. The good news is the second half of the chapter is all about practical strategies. It's the how to fix it part.
Thank goodness. And the first one is the hardest, I think, for a lot of people, setting boundaries. This is about learning to say no.
Oh, yeah. The fear of saying no is powerful. You're afraid you'll seem unhelpful, or that you'll miss out on an opportunity, or that your boss will think less of you.
Totally. Let's role play this. It's 4:45 p.m. on a Friday. I'm your boss. Hey Jeff, got a minute? Listen, something just came up from the client. I know it's late, but could you pull together a quick report on the Q3 numbers? I need it by Monday morning.
Okay, wow, right in the deep end. My gut reaction is, yeah, of course. But, okay, let me try the boundary thing. Hey, Bryce, I understand this is important. I'm actually wrapping up my priorities for the week to hit my deadlines. I can dedicate my full attention to this first thing Monday morning and get it to you by midday. Will that work?
See, that's perfect. It's not a flat no, it's a yes, and here's when I can do it. You acknowledge the importance, you state your priorities, and you offer a clear, reasonable alternative. 9 times out of 10, a decent boss will say, yeah, that's fine. The world doesn't end.
That's a great script. But what if the boss pushes back? What if they say, I understand you're busy, but this is a top priority and I need you to get it done? It's just getting over that initial jolt of guilt, right? But the reward is you get your weekend back. You protect your personal time. That's a huge return on investment for 5 seconds of courage.
And it's not just about time boundaries, right? The book talks about different kinds. There are mental boundaries, like consciously deciding not to think about work problems after 6 p.m. It's like clothing a tab in your brain.
Exactly. This ties into the next strategy, which is time management. And they mention a couple of classic tools. The Eisenhower matrix is one.
Yes, the 4 boxes: urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and neither. I feel like I live my entire life in the urgent but not important box, answering emails, responding to Slack messages, the little things that feel pressing but don't actually move the needle on my big goals.
I think we all do. The goal is to spend more time in that second box. Important, but not urgent. That's where the deep work happens. Strategic planning, skill development, relationship building, the stuff that prevents future emergencies.
And to do that, you almost have to use the other technique they mentioned, which is time blocking, actually scheduling appointments with yourself in your calendar to work on that important stuff. 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., draft project proposal. And you treat that block as seriously as you would a meeting with your CEO.
Have you ever tried that consistently? It's hard because the plan always gets punched in the face. A real fire will erupt, and you have to abandon your beautifully crafted time block schedule.
It does, but I think the value isn't having the plan in the first place. Even if it gets derailed, you know what you should be getting back to. It's the rudder for your ship. Without it, you're just blown around by the winds of other people's urgency.
Exactly. And a common failure point with time blocking is the all or nothing mindset. One unexpected meeting or urgent task comes in, it derails the first block, and people just throw the whole plan for the day out the window. They feel like a failure, so they just give up. You know, Jeff, as we're talking about these strategies like time blocking and setting boundaries, it strikes me that We often approach balance as this static, perfectly level scale we need to maintain 365 days a year. But I've found it's more helpful to think of balance in seasons.
Seasons. I like that. It immediately takes the pressure off. It maps perfectly to the business world, right? You have seasons of intense effort, a launch project, a major project deadline, the end of quarter push. Those are the sprints. And then you have the marathon pace, the normal day to day rhythm.
Exactly. The danger isn't the sprint itself. Sprints can be exhilarating and incredibly productive. The danger is when the sprint becomes the new marathon. When you finish the launch and instead of downshifting, you immediately start looking for the next full tilt sprint. That's a direct path to burnout.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, the next two strategies are a bit more internal. The first is finding meaningful work. And the chapter makes a great point that this doesn't mean you have to quit your corporate job to go save the rainforest.
Right. It's about connecting what you do every day to a larger purpose. Even if your job is data entry, maybe that data helps the company create a product that makes people's lives easier. Or maybe your purpose is more about being a great teammate, mentoring a junior colleague, or creating a positive atmosphere in the office.
Exactly. It's about reframing, finding the why behind the what. When your work feels meaningful, it's less straining. It energizes you instead of depleting you, which makes it easier to be present and engage when you finally log off for the day.
And that leads perfectly into the final strategy, prioritizing quality time. Not just quantity, but quality. My disastrous anniversary trip is the perfect example of quantity without quality. I was there for 2 days, but the quality time was probably about,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We've all been there, sitting on the couch with family, but everyone's on their own device. You're in the same room, but you're not together. Quality time is about being present and connected.
that's a really important distinction. It's about being intentional. But what happens when intention goes out the window? We've been talking about crafting a balanced life under normal circumstances. But what about when things get genuinely chaotic? I'm talking about a family emergency, a sudden illness, a global pandemic, times when the goal shifts from thriving to just surviving. And it doesn't have to be a big, expensive vacation. The book says it can be a 20-minute walk with your partner after dinner with phones left at home. It can be 30 minutes of building Legos with your kid, fully focused on what they're doing.
I had one of those moments last week. My daughter wanted to show me a card game she learned. My first thought was, "Ugh, I'm tired. I have emails to check." But I put the phone down, sat with her for 15 minutes, and we just played this silly game and laughed. It was, without a doubt, the best part of my day. It refilled my tank more than an hour of scrolling ever could have.
That's it right there. That's the balance. Is making the conscious choice to invest in those small, high quality moments. That's what builds a rich personal life. We've talked about all these practical tools, but if your underlying mindset is still stuck in more work equals more value, none of them will stick.
So, to wrap this all up, what's the big takeaway from chapter 3 for you, Jeff, if you had to boil it down?
I think that balance isn't a destination you arrive at. It's not a puzzle you solve once. It's a constant dynamic practice. It's a series of small choices you make every single day. The choice to say no, the choice to block your time, the choice to put your phone away. It's an active verb, not a static noun.
I love that. A dynamic practice. It's not about achieving perfection, it's about making conscious choices that align with your values, day in and day out. It's a skill you develop over time.
Well said. This has been a fantastic discussion, Bryce, a much needed one.
Likewise, and hopefully it's given all of you out there some food for thought and some practical tools to start building a little more balance in your own lives. That's all the time we have for this episode of The Power of Choice. Join us next time as we dive into chapter 4. Until then, make good choices.
Thanks for listening, everyone.